Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. As always and regularly, I want to again thank all our donors, especially those who donate on a regular basis. We're truly grateful. And although things have been a little quiet in terms of news recently, we'll have quite a bit of news on the horizon. Speaking of the businesses in Iraq and in Lebanon, things are very tough in Syria at the moment. We've had to suspend our donations just for the moment due to the difficulty of getting money in safely, but please God, on the horizon things will change. Our brethren are suffering greatly, but there's some good news as well. Prayer is very central, as you know, to this entire mission. Of course it should be, and is. And we've been managing now to put in a couple of icons, shrines for prayer for the persecuted, first in New York, as you know, in 2017, and then in London just a few weeks ago. And this Friday, the 21st of October, we'll put the third shrine in the world in the Diocese of Worcester, Massachusetts, in the church in Clinton, Massachusetts, with the blessing of the bishop. And this is a beautiful event. It is so important, and it's, as I said, truly part of the heart of our ministry. It's not just helping people physically. And sometimes people think, well, giving is great, and that does what is needed. Prayer is central. And so I'd encourage you to continue to pray every day for our persecuted brethren, but also to support this initiative. It's my aim, my hope, that Nazarene will continue to put shrines in dioceses with the blessing of the bishop so that people can have a permanent place to pray for our persecuted brethren throughout the world. These icons of Our Lady, of Mary, Mother of the persecuted. But also on Friday, there will be the world premiere of a Mass for persecuted Christians, an entirely sung Mass written by our friend Paul Jernberg. It's going to be a really extraordinary and beautiful experience, and please God, one day will be shown on EWTN. Also, it's important to say that our brethren who are persecuted greatly appreciate this. I've heard it myself, that not only are we establishing the shrines, but this beautiful Mass is taking place. They know, they know we're praying for them, they really appreciate it. That we're in difficult times, even the most wide-eyed optimist would have to acknowledge. I remember when I started doing these weekly nuggets at the beginning of COVID and lockdown, things seemed rather grim. Now, more than 3 years later, we have a major European war, talk of power shortages, food shortages, and many other difficulties as winter approaches. However, it's worth bearing in mind, especially for all who support us so generously, as I said at the beginning, that our struggles are as nothing compared to our brethren in Syria and Lebanon, where power is cut for 22 hours a day, and now cholera is spreading due to the poor upkeep of water infrastructure. The temptation, and it is most certainly a temptation, is to despair, which of course is a sin against the Holy Spirit, or at least to be discouraged, which, while natural, is also a very useful tool of the evil one. This is not about the denial of reality. As we know, the Christian virtue of hope is not optimism. Things may be bad and might get much worse. To say all will be well, don't worry, be happy, is not the response of faith. Faith and hope looks difficulty in the eye with fortitude and firmness, trusting in God's presence and his care. Jesus in St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 24, speaking to his disciples of what the end times will look like, tells of increasing hatred for him and those who follow him, betrayal, false prophets, and worse. He warns, and this does sound contemporary, that most men's love will grow cold. But, and this is most critical for us, he says, he who endures to the end will be saved. If most men's love, including Christian men and women's love, has grown cold, then our love must be all the stronger and warmer. In the first place, that means our love for God and his church. When men are leaving the church in despair, we must be ever more faithful. It is not, sadly, only in the world that we see this disintegration and malaise, but also in the church. It's a curious phenomenon of the age that some believe aping the world, imitation rather than conversion, is the way to draw people to Christ. The very opposite, we know, is true. It's when the Church is faithful to her call, preaches the message of radical conversion to whatever society or culture she finds herself, that the gospel is truly being preached and there is hope for the future. It's precisely at the moment when things seem the worst, without hope, that rather than retreat, a fight is called for. This came to mind very powerfully when I was reading the description of an epic poem of a battle in 991 AD, when the English were defeated by a Viking army. As Eleanor Parker says in her book, the poem explores how even though the English will lose the battle and all die, it's about courage in the face of disaster, how we choose to act when we know death is near. That's actually the Christian life, though most of us, let's be brutally honest, try and push that thought to the back of our minds. It's what, in some sense, Tolkien meant by the phrase, the long defeat. How we choose to act when we know death is near. Does it look like the church in our part of the world, be it England or the northeastern United States, is dying? Then we don't retreat, amalgamate with liberal orthodoxy, and imitate some of the Protestant denominations which have come to believe in their death throes that moving with the world is the key to success. The last speech in the epic poem, given by one of the old warriors about to die, is our word. Courage must be the firmer, heart the keener, mind must be the greater, as our strength diminishes. Brethren, rejoice, be perfected, be comforted, be of the same mind, be at peace, and the God of peace and love will be with you.